A Buddhist Paradox. I have heard that. One autumn day, Buddha was walking through a forest, the crunch of golden leaves underfoot marking his path. During a pause in his journey, his disciple Ananda approached him with a question. "Blessed One, I have a question that I prefer to ask in private. Please answer me honestly. Have you shared everything you know, or are there things you've kept from us?" The Blessed One picked up a handful of leaves and said, "What I have taught you is like these leaves in my hand, just a small part. What I know is as vast as the leaves in this entire forest. It's not that I wish to conceal anything, but I cannot possibly convey all that I know. Even discussing these few leaves is challenging because it surpasses human understanding. You grasp concepts, yet you do not comprehend the state of no mind. You experience emotions, yet you haven't tasted the stillness devoid of emotions, as if the clouds in the sky have vanished entirely. Therefore, I've tried my best," he continued, "but words fail me when I attempt to describe more. If I can help you understand that life contains many aspects that are beyond words, if I can convince you that there are many things your mind cannot grasp, then I am satisfied. That would mean the seed has been planted in fertile soil." Throughout his life, Buddha did not allow anyone to record his words. The reason was that listening while writing distracts you. Thus, what you note down is incomplete, altered, or added by your interpretation. You must listen, then record, and the subtleties of what he said are such that unless you are utterly focused, you will not understand. Instead of taking notes, listen intensely, with both body and soul, allowing the teachings to deeply penetrate your thoughts. He preached for 45 years. After his entry into nirvana, the first thing his disciples did was to write down what they remembered. Otherwise, humanity would have lost a great deal. Their effort was both beneficial and detrimental. They compiled the scriptures, but an odd phenomenon occurred. It was as if one heard a duck while another described a chicken, because each memory differed. 32 sects emerged. Each insisted that they had faithfully recorded the Blessed One's words, but the disciple with the most extraordinary memory was Ananda, the Blessed One's closest disciple. Yet, when Buddha entered nirvana, Ananda had not yet attained enlightenment. Ananda was very humble and aware that, not being enlightened, how can I accurately convey the words of one who was? I will interpret. I will mix it with my own thoughts. I will embellish and distort. Its true meaning will be lost to me because I do not have the eyes to see nor the ears to hear. Because of this humility, the scriptures he compiled became the foundational texts of Buddhism. All these texts begin with, "I have heard that." The 32 sects had their own distinguished scholars. They were more erudite than Ananda. They could interpret, argue, and construct grand doctrines. But gradually, all these sects were discarded because they lacked one element. "I have heard so." They all said, "Buddha said," and insisted that Buddha had spoken thus. Ananda's scriptures were universally accepted. This is interesting. Many attained enlightenment, but they remained silent because what they had heard could not be expressed. Others, not enlightened but philosophical geniuses, argued brilliantly and expounded the scriptures skillfully, yet they were not accepted. The one who was accepted had not attained enlightenment, was not a philosopher, and was merely someone who had cared for Buddha. Ananda was accepted for his humility, his honesty in starting with, "I have heard so. I do not know for certain if the Blessed One said this. I cannot put words into his mouth. I can only say what I have heard. I can speak of my mind, but not of the sublime silence of the Blessed One." Chapter 1. Buddhism and the Misunderstanding about Religion. Firstly, let us clarify immediately that Buddhism is not a religion, neither in the traditional Western sense nor the Eastern one. When we speak of religion, we refer to faith, church, clerical authority, divine authority, revelation, and so forth. Buddhism includes all these elements, but it is crucial to understand. These elements do not define Buddhism, but are merely inevitable forms that arise from the spiritual degeneration of those who claim to follow Buddhism. Buddhism is neither religion nor philosophy or philosophical thought. The philosophical thought in Buddhism is merely an inevitable consequence of the dialectical development in the spiritual activities of its followers. There is often an emphasis on the practical, empirical aspect of Buddhism in addressing life's significant issues. Hence, some have described Buddhism as a form of empiricism, akin to Auguste Comte's positivism, David Hume's empiricism, or phenomenalism, or William James's pragmatism. Others have compared Buddhism to philosophical systems that contrast with materialism and empiricism. They say Buddhism is similar to Jean-Paul Sartre's existential philosophy or to the therapeutic methods of modern psychoanalysis as practiced by Carl Jung or Erich Fromm, and so on. In short, they have attributed to Buddhism labels that are both contradictory and alien to the essence of Buddhism. All these unusual incidents only highlight the fundamental misunderstandings of those well-intentioned individuals approaching Buddhism. This misunderstanding stems from a flawed attitude of those seeking to understand Buddhism, whether they are well-intentioned or not, and whether they come from within the Buddhist tradition or from outside. The misunderstanding arises from a misperception of attitude. The approach of the inquirer is flawed from the foundation. Hence, Buddhism becomes merely a subject of intellectual curiosity, and the form of Buddhism becomes more important than its vibrant spirit. People study Buddhism merely to compare, to satisfy their curiosity, to expand their knowledge, to praise or oppose, to claim as their own or reject. They do not see Buddhism as Buddhism, but view it as either atheistic or theistic religion, as materialistic or idealistic philosophy, as creed or dogma. Chapter 2. Seeing Buddhism as Buddhism. Buddhism is as we see it. The Buddhist scriptures often begin with, "Thus have I heard." These are the words Buddha instructed his disciples Upali and Ananda to use at the beginning of the scriptures. "Thus have I heard" means I have heard it exactly as it was spoken. I have heard Buddhism as Buddhism. Hearing Buddhism as Buddhism also means seeing Buddhism as Buddhism. To see correctly and honestly, one must have a proper and upright attitude. Standing in the midst of life, everyone has a certain perspective. Perspective also means viewpoint. Viewpoint is the point from which one sees. View translates from the Pali word dasana. Knowing how to see is important in life. Buddhism often emphasizes seeing. We frequently encounter the words view, kien, and contemplation, Quan, scattered throughout all Buddhist scriptures. Right view, samaditthi, is the first path, the initial path in the Noble Eightfold Path, the Eightfold Path of right practice. The entire meaning of Zen revolves around the concept of seeing nature, Kien Tan, and the essence of all Buddhist sects can be summarized in the phrase, transforming wrong views into right views. In Pali, this is called ditthiyukama. To see and see correctly, that is the simple yet complex meaning of Buddhism. To see and see correctly, that is the path of all paths. Buddhism opens our eyes to see things as they are, to see things according to reality. In the Pali scriptures, this seeing is called vipassana, insight. Meditation, bhavana, has two types: samatha, calming, and vipassana, insight. Through practicing samatha, one attains abhinya, supernormal knowledge, whereas through vipassana, one attains enlightenment. Chapter 3. The Spiritual Attitude in Buddhism. The first point we need to address regarding the spiritual attitude in Buddhism is the importance of seeing in our inner life and the outside world. We are present, yet we do not see, and if we do see, we often see incorrectly. This is what in Buddhism is called wrong view, mikkaditthi. Wrong view is the greatest disaster in life. It is more dangerous and harder to cure than war, poverty, and natural disasters. Wrong view turns a person into the most despicable creature. Inverted view means seeing things backward, taking the false for the real, the illusory over the true. Terms like obsessive view, attachment to views, in Sanskrit, drishtipamarsa, view as obstacle, cyclical view, entangled view, biased view, drishtikasaya, affectionate view, opinionated view, poisonous view are common in Buddhist texts to indicate the incorrect seeing of humans, the enslavement of consciousness, the degeneration of knowledge, the human quagmire on the path back to freedom and bliss. Two important sects among the main schools of Buddhism, the Madhyamika, middle way, and Zen, also led humans back to true seeing. The essence of the Madhyamika revolves around destroying all incorrect views, drishti, breaking away from doctrinal beliefs, drishtivada, self-view, atma-drishti, satkaya drishti, nihilistic view, vibhava drishti, and existential view, bhava drishti, to realize emptiness, sunyata. The essence of Zen is encapsulated in the phrase, seeing nature becomes Buddha, meaning seeing one's own nature as inherently pure. Seeing nature also equates to seeing Buddha. In the Pali Abhidhamma, there is mention of Dhamma kaku, eye of the Dharma. Speaking of the fruits of meritorious deeds in the form realm, a practitioner with intense mindfulness, sati, that overshadows other virtues is reborn in the realm of beautiful view, Pali Suddhasa. Here, beautiful view symbolically represents the outcome of true seeing. Here, it is not our place to cite scriptures and an array of Buddhist terms in Sanskrit, Pali, and Chinese. We only aim to briefly present some specific examples to illustrate the crucial role of the Dhamma kaku, eye of the Dharma, in the spiritual attitude of Buddhism. In the past, Zen masters often referred to Buddhism as the true Dharma eye treasury, as in the transmission of the true Dharma eye treasury to a disciple. Seeing correctly means seeing the truth as it truly is. All the meaning of the spiritual attitude in Buddhism can be summarized in seeing. In modern Western thought, no one is unaware of the name Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a renowned scholar and philosopher. In his work, The Phenomenon of Man, Teilhard de Chardin places all importance on the verb to see, voir. For Teilhard de Chardin, all of life boils down to seeing, voir. One could say that all of life is there. Teilhard de Chardin goes further, voir ou périr, see or perish. The unification of humanity is only possible through a broad expansion of human consciousness, and expanding consciousness is essentially expanding vision. Teilhard de Chardin, unity only grows when supported by an increase in consciousness, that is, in vision. The converging universe, l'univers convergent, that Teilhard de Chardin envisions is also a unification of object and subject in their mutual transformation to achieve comprehensive understanding. Man finds himself and sees himself in everything he sees. The spiritual attitude of Buddhism starts with right view. Right view is seeing things as they truly are, and the Four Noble Truths explain this true seeing. Right view means understanding the Four Noble Truths. It is seeing the ultimate reality. Anyone who identifies as a Buddhist at least has a basic knowledge, summarized in the four foundations of mindfulness. 1. Contemplation of the body as impure. 2. Contemplation of sensations as suffering. 3. Contemplation of the mind as impermanent. 4. Contemplation of phenomena as non-self. The word contemplation, seeing, is found in the four foundations of mindfulness. These foundations open up the four immeasurables, the path to eliminating desires, aversion, impurities, and achieving liberation. This is the basic foundation for the attitude of Buddhism. It is called a spiritual attitude because this attitude leads one to a spiritual life. An important point we need to mention is that spiritual here does not mean spiritus, animus, anima, ratio, transcendence, etc., as in the context of medieval scholastic tradition in the West. Here, spiritual is understood in the sense of mind in the Buddhist term citta. Buddhism does not separate mind, citta, and form, rupa, as both are interrelated and interdependent. This is a fundamental difference between the concept of mind in Buddhism and mind in Western religious and philosophical systems. Buddhist psychology, such as the study of Abhidhamma, is not about mind in the Greek sense of psyche, but about form realm mind, formless realm mind, transcendent mind, that is, issues that go beyond our current superficial and limited understanding. Another important aspect of Buddhism that we should particularly note is spiritual experience, loosely translated from French for easier understanding as metaphysical realization, spiritual experience, mystical experience. All Buddhist sects guide us towards the ultimate goal of spiritual experience. In other words, it is not just about theory, but living the theory through reality and experience, dual cultivation of wisdom and virtue. Buddhism is not a doctrinal form, but a guide on a method leading to personal realization de soi, vérité pour soi. Buddhism does not deny metaphysics. If metaphysics is discovered through personal experiential path, Buddhism transforms metaphysics into experience, into an attitude, briefly called the spiritual attitude. This spiritual attitude is meditation, Pali, vipassana, cultivating the form, realm mind and formless realm mind with meditation methods of the form and formless realms. Each object has its own method, and each method is flexible, adapting to circumstances and time. The spiritual attitude of Buddhism does not lie on a transcendental plane, meaning it is not detached from this life. The spiritual attitude of Buddhism does not arise from awareness of a supreme deity or transcendental entity. On the contrary, the spiritual attitude of Buddhism exists within humans, by humans, for humans. This does not mean that Buddhism is confined to the immanent plane, in Christian theological terms. It is not so. Concepts like transcendence and immanence cannot be applied to Buddhism. Buddhism stands outside the distinctive concepts of theological language. Buddhism appears for humans, but that does not mean Buddhism places humans at the center of the universe, understood as anthropocentrism. Understanding it as such would only limit Buddhism to a constrained human condition, seeing only the manifest and denying the potential, and separating humans from the unified nature of the universe. The spiritual attitude of Buddhism is about returning humans to their human state, and humans are only truly human when they no longer cling to human traits, self, and acceptance. In short, Humans must transform themselves to attain Buddhahood. Buddhism is neither humanism nor anti-humanism, as all forms of humanism or anti-humanism are founded on a fixed viewpoint regarding human nature, essence humane, nature humane. Anti-humanism is also humanism, for it denies one form of humanism to embrace another. All humanist doctrines recognize that humans, homo, are only human when they return to their human quality, humanitas, restoring humans, homo, to their human status, humanus. Anti-humanism denies human nature, homo humanus, to praise non-human nature, homo non-humanus, but both cases share the viewpoint of arguing from a standpoint on human essence, nature. Buddhism does not recognize that humans have an essence, nature understood as substance, nature or essence, or ego, because Buddhism emphasizes the non-self nature of humans. All forms of humanism and anti-humanism recognize that humans have ego. All spiritual attitudes in Buddhism are about breaking these views, that is, breaking the ego and clinging, elevating humans beyond themselves to reach Buddhahood. This attitude transforms humanism into Buddhahood. To bring humanism to Buddhahood, one must see the truth as the truth, meaning seeing the Four Noble Truths. To see this truth, one must see for oneself, not rely on others to see for them, not be enslaved to creed, opinion, viewpoint, or a supreme being above or below this life. Buddhism invites us to embark on the journey ourselves, without baggage, without being bound to divine or human authority. Buddhism invites us to stand up and take responsibility for our own lives. The path of Buddhism is the path that leads to true seeing, transforming wrong views into right views, Ditti Jukama, the only path that leads to a beautiful spiritual life, most clearly embodied in the serene smile of the Buddha. That discreet smile contains all the rich meanings of Buddhism.